Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to this episode of the Alex Beyond Thoughts podcast with me, Alex, your host. And we have an absolutely incredible guest today. I'm so excited to have this guest on. If you're watching the video version, you will already see who we have on here. But today we have on the most incredible online business manager and strategist. We have the events extraordinaire, someone who is just part of every part of your life, backs you 100%, and is your ride or die person when you work with her. We have Jess Lucas, aka Let's Talk
Hello.
Business. Hello.
Thank you for having me,
Hi.
Alex. And that wonderful introduction that I'm somewhat blushing with. Thank you for that. But no, I'm so thrilled to be here.
I'm so excited to have you on today. How are you?
I'm well. I'm well. The sun is shining here. It's fresh. We've definitely switched over into autumn. I'm here in the southern hemisphere in Victoria, Australia. My outlook doesn't look quite as good as yours today, but we are really well today. The little man is off at daycare. It is a heavy work day for me, which I just love. I'm lit up about, and I'm sure we'll touch on that a little bit more in our call. But I'm really good, and I'm excited to be here and part of this podcast.
That is so good to hear. I love that he's off at his little daycare. That's so cute. Um,
Yeah.
let's jump straight in because I like to get straight to the good stuff as soon as possible. Um, my first question is usually to people about how they kind of got into what they're doing right now, because I think it can be quite convoluted and confusing at the start if there's someone looking to be in a kind of role that you do. How did you get into being a business manager, a strategist? Where did that kind of path begin for you?
Yeah. So essentially, it began before my business life. So I've been in business now, coming on, what are we, about 18 months, which in the grand scheme of things is like small fry. It's tiny. Like I feel like I'm just beginning and every day is my day one. And but in terms of my business journey and how I got to where I am today, it started obviously long before this. And I have, a history in the 9 to 5 corporate life before I kind of took up my business journey. So in my 20s, I worked through event management and as an event coordinator. In both the wedding space and in like more of the corporate event space. Beyond that, then I moved into executive management. So I worked as an EA to a CEO in the local government space. So I was really fortunate to work in local government for almost 6 years. And that gave me a lot of the experiences that I've taken on today and a lot of the skills that I've taken today. I worked in, obviously, as an EA, I worked in the tourism space, I worked in HR, and then I moved into working in communications and PR. So a lot of the skills that I touch on and grab from today actually came from that 9 to 5 world. Um, After that, I realized my passion in business and where I wanted to be helping, like working with business owners and in the back end of businesses. And I still moved into like in the corporate 9 to 5 space, but I started working in service providing industry. So I actually worked in trade. So for about collective of about 6 or 7 years, I worked across 2 companies in both construction and development, and then in the electrical space, working as a business manager, working more in the back end of a business, and then as an operations manager. So working as a client liaison, managing staff, managing all the jobs across a business, and effectively just working as like a right hand to the CEO. So that was like my pre-business experience that's got me to where I am today. And the catalyst for me jumping into the business space was obviously a deep knowing that I was meant for more and I was meant for more impact and to work with more people and utilize my passion and purpose more and leverage that more than what I was able to do in that 9 to 5 space. And then I had my son. So I had my son, Romeo's a couple of days off 2 years old. And I knew at that point that was an opportunity for me to kind of pave my own way and do it in alignment with, my role then as a mother and my role as a partner. And that's where I thought, okay, let's give this business thing a shot. And so I jumped into like the online space. I actually went strangely for a job interview. I was kind of pulled towards this job for an online coach, for an online business mentor and coach. And it was a job working as her business manager. And while I wasn't successful, what it did do was open up this world of like, hang on a second, like I can actually do this not just for one person, I could potentially do this for multiple people
Mm-hmm.
and do it as my own business. So that was like the catalyst somewhat for me starting my own business. And I just realized that I had all these different skill sets from different areas. And I was like, how can I bundle them up into like a single job? And at that time, there was no job in the corporate 9 to 5 world that I could find that did that. So that's where the business journey started. And I was like, how can I cherry pick all the things that I love and all the things I'm really good at and like push that into a business? So that's kind of where I landed today.
That's so cool. Yeah, so you just have all of these skills and you're able to connect them and make them a possibility even for you to just pivot industries and become a BM. So I really just want to know, like, how would you actually, no, I don't want to know that. I want to know what kind of gives you the confidence, maybe. That's maybe a better question for me to find out. What gives you the confidence at that time to say, I'm going to go for this role. I'm going to interview for a BM. I'm going to actually pivot then, even if I'm not successful in this role, and I'm going to create something of my own. Because with all the skills you have, other people may think, I'm not able to do this. I don't have the necessary experience. People aren't going to trust me. I don't have any kind of credibility in order to pivot to whatever industry it is that you're thinking of pivoting to. So I want to know how you got there.
It's a constant work in progress. Like you don't ever have it harnessed. Even the biggest, most successful business owners and the people that you might aspire to be are constantly learning to face fears and are constantly willing to face fears. And that's the difference, is that if you have a fear and you have doubts, you have to understand that in order to achieve success or grow, you need to like basically get really good at being able to face those and move through those. And I'm sure many others like me who have moved into taken that chance and moved into the business space didn't ever have it figured out, didn't ever have it completely figured out or a long-term plan. I had an idea of what I'd love it to be, but I just recognized that I had a skill and I could take a skill and I just had to apply that in day one and then get through day one and then move on to day two and just keep being willing to pivot and evolve and change and shift and know that it doesn't have to be this pre-polished perfect version of what someone else has, because that's their day 456,000 and you're on day one. And just know that as long as you can work out what you're going to do, in this day and how you're going to show up in this day and what you can do to move the needle in that day towards the greater vision, then the rest will just like fall into place. And it's very much sounds cliche, but it literally is just being willing to take one step and then that further next step and the next step and just being willing to learn and figure it out along the way.
I think that's such sound advice. And it's honestly something I needed to hear right now. So that's super
Mm,
cool
mm,
because you do compare your day one to someone else's 3,567th day.
mhm. Yeah.
And I do find myself sometimes thinking, why am I not further along? Why am I not where this other person is? And we can often get lost in comparison and thinking, well, other people got this far on their day 6, so why can't I do that? But it's actually your process and it's your path to success, and that's not going to look like anyone else's. And
Mm,
yeah, it's something I needed to hear because I've been in a bit of a rut recently of not even necessarily comparison, but of um I'm going to use the word punishing myself.
mm.
I'm going to say punishing myself over not being further than I'd planned to be. And
Yeah.
that's a super interesting place to be in business, I think, because other people haven't even started and they're
Mm,
punishing themselves over not being further ahead by now. And
mm,
actually, if they spent that same energy, and I'm talking to myself here too, if they spent that same energy starting or
mm.
putting that day
Just
one
do it.
perspective in, focusing on day one, then focusing on day two, then focusing on day three, they would actually be further along because they're not just spending that energy punishing themselves. So that is super cool.
Absolutely.
And yeah, that's something I needed to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. I just, and gosh, if I look at who I was and the things that I was beating myself up for 18 months ago when I started my business versus the things that I beat myself up for now, like I'm still human. I still beat myself up and have those doubts and thoughts. And I think just the my trajectory and my ability to get where I am at, the stage of 18 months in my business journey has just really been a willingness just to meet that and just move through it. But, when I started, like, just like everybody else, like I started and I in the online space and in the world of like social media and things like that, and I was beating myself up over like the smallest things that I was putting myself in comparison, and I was looking at my audience on how many people were viewing my stories and how big is my audience and am I getting likes and am I attracting like the right type of clientele, and is my follower count growing, and like I couldn't even tell you now like those things, like I don't look at them. And I guess as you move in that in your business journey, and even in, and I'm sure we'll touch on like a self-development and personal development journey, you have different problems. It's not to say that you
Mm.
don't ever have problems again and you move past them. You just learn to like you become and have different problems. And the problems that I made a somewhat of a deal back then, I certainly don't even consider now. But it's just an ability to kind of just move past those and know that, yeah, your day one doesn't have to look like someone's day 465, but they had a day one too.
Exactly. And I think even in that, like choosing different problems, I think that's something I've really had to learn over the past few years, even um, starting my business, all that good stuff, like being in this industry, really learning to choose your problems is something like that's one of my biggest takeaways, I think, so far. Because, like you said, what I would worry about even a year ago is something that just doesn't cross my horizon anymore to think about. And I think it's like such a great starting point if you are at that level of business where even if you've got an established business and you're wanting to pivot, or you are in a corporate industry and you want to come out and do, I don't know, raking leaves, like whatever it is.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it's about choosing the problems that are actually going to be important to you and that are actually going to be a problem, rather than what's mum going to say.
Exactly.
Is
Yeah.
the postman going to look in my house and see me building my lash tech studio and think I'm weird? Like, choose
Yeah.
better problems for yourself.
Is Aunt Flo going to comment on the fact that I'm speaking on my stories, and then I'm
Yeah.
getting up and speaking on my stories and being unapologetically myself. And yeah,
Mhm.
it is. It's true. And that's really like that's a lesson for life. Like it's not just a lesson
Mm.
for business; it's a lesson for life. Like look at the problems that you're choosing to have on a day-to-day basis, and decide to have bigger problems, because I guarantee there's things that you're focusing on that are taking away, as you said, so much of your energy and time and space that could be better devoted to not caring, showing up as
Mhm.
yourself, going after your passions, going after your goals, regardless of, the problems that you're telling yourself that you have.
Mhm. And just thinking about it now, I don't think I've actually asked you what you do as like a day to day in your business currently. Like we've had a little touch on
Yeah.
what you did to get into this industry, but for people that have no idea about our kind of industry, if you don't know, me and Jess kind of operate in the same sphere of people we work with and things like that, but not exactly the same. So, what is it on a day to day or week to week, if that's easier, basis
Mm.
that you actually do in your business now?
Yeah, look, I wear a lot of hats.
Mhm.
It is tough to explain, and it's tough for people to comprehend and understand, at its core and at its most basic level of what I actually do for people. So, for those that don't know what a business manager is, or like a virtual assistant is a kind of something else that I'll touch on, or even a business strategist. So, what I do is at its core and at its most base level, I help people run their businesses. And instead of doing that in just a one-on-one capacity where I might just work in a corporate role and doing that just for one person, effectively what I do is I help multiple people run their businesses. And so people that are in the service providing industry, people that are in the online space, um, people that are potentially looking at different structures of how they want to grow and scale and evolve their business without bringing on an employee, um, obviously can subcontract out, to people like myself to help them in the back end and the running, of their business. So on a day-to-day basis for me, and obviously there are different iterations of this within the industry, but for me, I run a business and event management agency. So I help people in both business and events in the management of both of those spaces. So for me, that can look like setting up systems, back end support, elevating your customer journey and your customer experience. It can look like I have a team as well, so I'm very fortunate to have other subcontractors underneath me as well, and a team structure. So that can look like utilizing the skills of my team to provide support in administration, email management. We could do like logistical management, coordination of events, in person and both remotely. We do one-off projects, so we can work with business owners in a one-off capacity, as well as working with business owners in a ongoing capacity as well. But yeah, it's, as I said, I wear a lot of hats. It varies from a day to day, and I love it. I love that no 2 days are the same. No two business owners that I work with, the support is not the same. There's no cookie cutter approach or process or formula that we follow in what we do. And that's just the way I like to be very fluid, and relaxed, and I guess adaptable to the needs of the business owner, because as I touched on in my career and what I've done to get here, it's been very broad. So
Mm.
I love being able to apply my myriad of skills in that way. So yeah, I guess that's kind of looks like, and what I is that I actually do. um, does that goes part way, you think, to explaining to, I guess, to people in the
Yeah.
space, what it is and what I do and what that looks like.
Yeah, definitely. I just think it's like one of those titles, like business manager, that we're like, oh, okay, cool, you manage business. What does that mean? If you don't obviously know our space, or you don't know Jess and how closely she works with her people she's in partnership with and things like that, you would probably have little idea of what actually goes on in being a business manager in running an agency.
Mm.
So I think that's really cool. And kind of like a side question to this, which feel free to not answer if you don't want to, but how have you found being a leader in your business? Because, like you said, you have subcontractors under you, and you also work in partnership with whoever you're working with and for, but you are still the leader in the agency, and you are still, I guess, the owner and the founder and all that good stuff. So how have you found being a leader, even within the 18 months of you having the conception of Let's Talk Business to now being the one driving it forward?
Again, it's a it's a concept that I just constantly have to learn and adjust, and face some things and stories and things that come up for me in that. But I feel that business has provided me with that vessel where I can lead, and where I was born to lead in a way that doesn't look as rigid and structured as I thought it might have to have looked if I had have taken the corporate world. And that's not to say that that doesn't have its place and purpose. It just wasn't the way that I perform as a human. And like I said, I like to be more fluid and flexible and adaptable, and do a lot of different things and apply my skills and my knowledge, and I can lead in this way, and in my business, and allow for those things. So as a leader, it comes with its challenges, like everything, when you move through and become more of an authority in the space, or you lead and you have the responsibility of team members. It comes with its own challenges. But I guess the biggest thing for me is just being able to have open communication, open, transparent, like I'm a really very transparent human. So I try to apply that in my role as a leader, both for the people that I work with and in partnership that I work with as a business manager and as a strategist, but also in my team, and just being willing to delegate, to drop your ego, my desire previously to want to do it all and handle everything, and actually leverage other people's skills and leverage what they're good at and what they're passionate about, and allow them opportunities to shine and provide, you know feedback and advice and provide suggestions, and give them that platform to do that, and that safety to do that as well. It's one of the biggest things I found in leading a team, is that to provide that safe space for people to feel that they can voice their advice or opinions, or maybe alternative perspectives, and that knows that it's a place where we take it on, it'll be seen, it'll be heard, and together we may change change the needle and push the needle another way based on something that they've brought to the table. And I just want to be able to provide that for other people, because I guess I was fortunate that within the spaces that I've been in up until now, that was provided to me by people that I've worked in close proximity with. That's been provided to me, and that's something that I've taken with me and I saw as an effective and successful and inspirational leader. And so they're qualities that I've taken on and tried to apply in this space as well.
It's super cool. And I think people take being a leader in different ways, especially when they've had bad leaders. And I use that word bad, like quote unquote.
Mm,
But when people have experienced not so good leadership and they've been under people, managers, bosses, even parents, honestly, um, that have led them, let's say, astray and have not been great role models, I think people can push back on the idea of having having a leader, having a manager, having someone to sit above you in business, even if you're self-employed. So like you have two people, I say under you, obviously you still work in partnership with them, but you have two people subcontracted to you. And I think people have this like preconception that if you're going to go into business by yourself, there's no need for you to then have someone to sit above you. But actually, some people's temperament, some people's best way of working is by having someone to help them delegate, having someone to help forward business, and having someone to help direct them in a way that's actually super beneficial. And people shy
mm,
away from going self-employed and still seeking out someone. I don't want to say to sit above them, but I'm trying to think of the
yeah,
word that you would use, to kind of still be employed, but in a self-employed lens, like be a subcontractor.
yeah,
I think there's some negative connotations with the idea of leaving a business, like something in the corporate world, to start your own thing, become a VA, become a lash tech, but actually then still go work in someone else's salon or
mm,
work in someone else's business, when actually there's
mm,
so much value and things you can learn, especially if you're at the start of your career, by doing
mm,
something like jumping into Jess's agency. You can learn so much more in such a short space of time from just being your leader, if you see what I mean,
mm,
than you would if you spent 18 months in business by yourself sometimes, because you
mm,
aren't naturally a leader, you aren't naturally inclined towards business. And that's not to say you can't learn those skills, but it's also to help people not dismiss the fact that being a subcontractor, being someone that's employed under someone else's business, can be the biggest learning curve that's going to
mm,
propel you even towards your own business in the most successful way. So I think
mm,
it's just really cool that you have an agency and you have people that you are leading and working in partnership with to get to that next level of
mm.
being an agency in this way. I think, yeah, I think it's just super cool. I think it's an idea that
Yeah.
people kind of reject sometimes when it's just a misconception of what it is like.
Mm, yeah. And I think for me, like that's one of the biggest things when I went into this agency structure. I really struggled with the concept around that. I really struggled with moving into what I had previously coined as what an agency would look like. And for me, I had to move through that and just pave my own way. And one of the biggest things that, that I set up right from the start, even before I started calling myself, an agency per se, was if I was bringing on subcontractors within our industry, especially like in terms of like white labeling and having people coming underneath you and helping you with your own work in a white label capacity, there was this notion that they should be doing it at a cheaper rate to what they'd be charging if they were charging that for a client, like a direct facing client. And for me, that just didn't sit right. Like for me, right from the start, I was like, if I'm seeking out a subcontractor to work with me in my business, they're providing me with a service that I would expect is the exact same level that they'd be providing, and the exact same task, exact same skills, the exact same contribution that they'd be providing to a client. And I am becoming their client. So why should the price as a subcontractor or as a white label subcontractor be any less than what they're charging? And it was like basically how I started like my interview process was like just letting you know, if you put whatever you put on your rate, like that needs to match what your rate is, an external facing client, dare I say, not just under this agency
Mhm.
structure. Yes, you haven't gone and sought out the client. Yes, there's some tasks that you won't be having to do that you would be having to do if you were working for yourself in a business, like invoicing and, some of the client communication. I'm like, don't care. For me,
Mm.
it's about the task that you're doing and the skills that you're bringing to the table and the human that you're bringing to the table. So I want that to be exactly the same. So it's things like that, that there are opportunities where you may have had bad experiences, or where you think that, if by doing that, you're sacrificing by coming on and doing like a white label situation or a subcontractor situation, or working for an agency or working for someone on the side,
Mm.
where you're sacrificing your business. But there are situations where it can actually benefit your business greatly and benefit you in your growth and your safety. And, it might provide you with opportunities that you didn't have. It might provide you, as you said, with learning. There are certainly opportunities out there, where you can set it up and certainly do both. You can have the best of both worlds. You can have your cake and eat it too. And for anyone that does come up in and work with me, in the team, and I still struggle with saying, work. I don't want to say, like, as you say, like, work under me. It just feels so wrong, because these people are people that I find that are passionate about their own businesses, because
Mm.
I'm passionate about my business and helping others. So I expect them to be passionate about that as well. And instead, really, what I'm just looking for is an opportunity to leverage someone else's skills, and leverage someone else's passion, and be able to grow and scale my business by having them help me in that. And and if that grows and scales their business, like, then I'm doing something right. Like, I'm doing something right, and I would never discourage that, in a knowing that, it might increase their skills and increase their knowledge and increase their capacity, and it might light something else within them, and they're able to go off on another path in their own business. And I would never ever discourage that. Like, I would encourage that wholeheartedly, because it just, to me, it's, I guess, it aligns greatly with, my purpose, and my why, and why I'm doing what I'm doing. And if I can provide that platform and that opportunity for someone else, then I've succeeded in what I do, and how I'm actually approaching the whole agency structure.
Mm. So cool. I love that. Can I have a job? Can I come
Sure,
back to you?
sure. Absolutely.
That's so
We'll be
cool.
recruiting. Again, it sounds so strange. Like, I still stumble on these words, and it is just, I guess, the fact that, as I said, I'm only 18 months into my journey, and I feel like sometimes I'm still at day one, and I'm only
Mm.
just getting started. So I do sometimes stumble at, like, the whole, like, recruiting and having people
Yeah.
work in my team, and it's like, hang on a second, I'm actually doing that.
Yeah. It's so cool. I love it. Okay. I kind of want to talk now about we have definitely touched on you being a beginner in this industry, but I do just want to touch on like the kind of mindsets and the things you've had to move through in your personal development in order to make being a beginner in this industry a little bit easier. Because I don't want to say it's easy. I don't want to say anyone's lucky. I don't want to use those kind of words because it takes away the power of the person we're talking about in that situation. Um, because this business is hard. Doing any business is hard. Doing any kind of pivot or career split or journey in this way is always hard. And I think sometimes people like to have this idea of how easy it would be in their head when in reality it's not. And that's not to discourage people from doing it. However, it is to make the reality of it clear that you're going to have down days. You're going to have days
Mm,
where you want to burn your business to the ground. You're going to have days where you think, why did I do this? Working in a 9 to 5 in a corporate business is so much easier. I just get to leave work at the door 5 p.m., 6 p.m., whatever time when you get home. And yeah, I kind of just want to touch on with your personal development and with your mindset and your ability to move, I think, as a beginner in this space. What was the kind of mindset, I guess, at that time? What was going through your head at that time?
mm. I think, and this is something I've probably come to understand more recently, um, is that within something, you will always be a beginner, whether it is your day one physically or whether it is your day 456. You will always be a beginner, and you have to be willing and open to being a beginner. You have to be willing to see those opportunities and know that there are going to be things that you're not going to be good at, that you have to learn, that you have to adapt. and regardless of where you're at on your journey. And when I learnt that, the sooner I learnt that, the sooner I was able to then understand that having fears and having doubts and not knowing what I'm doing was just part of this journey and just part of that space. So I think, yeah, understanding that through in some way you are always going to be a beginner no matter what stage you're at, and just knowing that that's part of it and being willing to be very open to it, yeah, regardless of when it hits you and how it hits you, being very open to that.
Mm, I love that. You're always a beginner. I do always feel like a beginner in business because there's always something new to learn. And there's
Yeah.
always a piece of information that I've been missing out on. And suddenly it drops on me, and I'm like, oh, how did I not know this before? This makes this so much easier. Or there's a new piece of software, or there's a new
Yeah.
AI creation. You're always a beginner. You're always learning new things. You're always being surprised, even with what you didn't know. Um,
Mm.
and it's tough sometimes, I think, because even just when you're feeling like you're getting a handle on things, in drops a new thing, in drops something you
Yeah.
have to be a beginner at again. um
Yeah.
a new process, or hiring a new person, let's say for your team, or a new client who's got a completely different way of living or whatever, and you have to learn something new with them. um
Mm.
there are so many new things when you're in business, and I guess even in a career there's always new things happening. um
Mm.
but it's, I think, a consistent mindset, and it's a way of being you have to cultivate in order to not have that drain you.
Mm. Yeah.
And
I think
I guess,
the,
sorry, hurry on.
no, the sooner you, or the as soon as you decide that you're no longer a beginner and you know it all, like as soon as you will store your success, like that's where you'll stop. So the understanding that, yeah, you there is always something to learn, and it's okay to not necessarily be good at something and have to apply yourself and learn more, then your success and your trajectory will continue. But as soon as you decide that, like, I've done it all, I know it all, I know what I'm doing, I've got this, I don't need anything else, that's when your success will stall.
Mm, absolutely. Super cool. I love these little conversations. I think,
These little like mindset shifts and yeah.
hmm, I guess this is my realm, isn't it? Mindset and all that good stuff. So it
Mm,
just, yeah,
yeah.
it sparks ideas in my brain of even what I could be teaching on, because this is, yeah, this is super cool.
Yeah.
Um, okay, let's pivot because I do want to touch on purpose, and it's something I ask my guests about a lot because I think a lot of people struggle with purpose. Like I've said before in other episodes, people have this kind of rocky relationship with believing in purpose or not believing in purpose, or thinking things are fated or destiny, and an element of luck in purpose and things as well. So I kind of want to know, do you believe in purpose? Do you believe you found purpose? If you want to share what it is, go for it. But yeah, I kind of just want to start this conversation on purpose.
Mm. I definitely do believe in purpose. I believe very much that as humans, we're meant to evolve, we're meant to a shift. And so therefore, I believe that your purpose can change and can pivot and adapt based on who you are and your experiences and your learnings and your seasons in life. And I think that your purpose can shift, and being willing to know that, I think is important for a lot of people, especially certain. I'm a manager, so often I'm constantly shifting and evolving and changing and going in a different path, and I had to learn not to wrong myself for that. And that is also in alignment, like in connection with purpose as well. But I think for me, yes, I would say that I found my purpose. But in order to do that, I very much had to find myself. And that sounds,
Mm,
I want to say wanky, but it's not. That
no, yeah.
I had to go inward and better understand who I was, and understand my values.
Mm,
And again, understand that just like purpose, values can shift and pivot and evolve. They're not always the same. And for me, that was very much the case, obviously, in becoming a mother and going through that journey, and my purpose and my values and who I was having to shift and evolve with that. So I think when you understand and you're able to go inward and better understand yourself, you better understand your why, and with that comes your purpose. So understanding you, what makes you tick, what you want to strive for, what your goals are, and just being able to draw all that together and draw the parallels between that will be able to be find like your greater purpose and your greater why you're here. Why are we actually here, and what do we want to do with it?
Yeah, that's huge. And I think
Mm,
that whole thing of like not wronging yourself for wanting to change your mind and make different decisions, and also like that element of having to find yourself first, that's super huge, because how are you going to know, let's say, what your aligned path is or where your future is supposed to go, if you don't
mm,
actually know who you are yet, and if you don't know
mm,
what you like or what you find important or what you'd like to prioritize in life, what
mm,
you value, what you believe in. If you don't know the
mm.
answers to those questions, and if someone asks you, what do you believe in? You say, I don't know.
Yeah,
How would you know purpose, or how would you find an answer to that question if
yeah.
you were looking for it? I think that's
Yeah,
super
I can
interesting.
guarantee if that's the case and you haven't spent the time to better understand who you are at your core, then you will be building someone else's purpose. You'll be building someone else's passion, someone else's goals, someone else's vision, society's, your mother's, in your partner's, whatever that looks like, whether you know it or not. If you don't fully know yourself and understand yourself, then your purpose and mission in life won't be your own.
Absolutely. And sometimes it might be easier to fulfill those other people's purpose or idea of your purpose. It's sometimes easier to just go along with what your parents say or what your partner thinks you should do or what Aunt Flo has predicted for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Yeah, that can be easier. You don't have to think as much. You don't have to challenge yourself. You don't have to step outside of your perfectly curated little box and see what the world has to offer you.
Mm.
It's so much easier, and obviously in the context it is hard to live life as a human. However,
Yeah.
not actually testing your limits or finding your challenges or finding yourself, let's say, full stop, it might be easier not to do that, but actually, is it a life fulfilled? Is it a life you're going to be happy with in the long run? If you're
Yeah.
going to trip
Yeah.
and fall for the next 2 years trying to do something different, is that not a learning curve that's beneficial to your story, that's beneficial to finding your purpose? And even knowing
Mm.
what you don't like, as much as knowing what you like and what you value and what you believe in, what don't you like? What don't you
Mm.
believe in? What don't you find valuable?
Yeah.
Answer those questions first if that's a path you're kind of wanting to go down and you're struggling with. What don't you like also? Because that can be as important as what you do want in your life.
Mm. Hugely. Yeah. Hugely. I think it's, as you said, like, you can swim with the tide and swim with everybody else, but you won't be necessarily like, it'll be, might be easier, but you won't be fulfilled. There'll be no fulfillment, no deep fulfillment in what you're actually doing and why you're here, and what you want to achieve in the time frame that we realistically have. You can get as morbid as you want, but do you want to look back, when you're old and grey, and actually be like, I gave it a red hot crack regardless of how hard it was. At least I knew I stayed true to who I was and what I wanted in this world, and I tried to make something of that, and I impacted people with that in mind. Or, do you want to look back at that time and think that I was really only doing what everybody else was doing, because it was easier to fit in or go with the tide and with the grain, than actually try and pay something for myself.
Mhm. And with that, you get to change your mind, like you said.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a one decision or you failed and you can never make another risky decision again in your life.
Yeah.
It's actually a perfect time to make
Mm.
a decision, to take a risk, to have that leap of faith and trust yourself. Because if you're not going to do it now, whatever stage of your life you're at, I guess, if you're not going to do it now, you can't predict tomorrow. You can't predict next month. Like 2020 was a year of lessons for us all,
Mm.
that you can't predict what's going to happen in the future. And not to get super existential, but like if you don't do it now, if you don't trust yourself and believe in yourself and bring about that kind of conviction that you've got your back no matter what, when are you going to do it? And I think there's no better time than the present. So if you're feeling the pull, if you're in a kind of place in your life where you want change, you want adventure, you want something different in your life, and you're not super happy and complacent with where you're at right now, trust, even in the pull of this podcast, that you've got everything you need right now to make that decision for a change, to find your purpose, to find yourself more. Whatever the thing is that you need to make a decision on to do, you have permission right now from me and Jess that you're going to have your own back, and there is really no better time than now.
It really is that notion of like, what have you got to lose? Because the act of not doing anything has far more detriment to the act of actually just giving it a shot and to giving it a try. Because yeah, it comes back to that, like, if you want to look back on your life, would you rather regret that you tried, or would you regret that you didn't do anything about it and you didn't trust yourself enough to do something, and to do something that aligns with who you are and what you want to achieve in this life? I know we went deep. Wow. Now we're talking,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's true. Like, it really is true. Like, no one knows what they've got ahead of them. No one knows what tomorrow will bring. What I step out in this next hour will bring. No one really knows. And so, if you can kind of lie your head and rest your head in a pillow at the end of the day, knowing that you stay true to who you are and what you want, then at least you've achieved that in your life. Yeah.
Super cool. I love that. Okay, I do want to have a little bit of a shift again. We like to change it up.
Like,
I would
yeah.
like to ask you exactly. Let's flow with the tide. Let's get a little bit less deep, just in case we lost a few people there
Come back to
with
the
our
surface. Yeah.
existentialness.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about some general tips for our listeners and viewers today. Um, just about seeking support if you are in business, if you are not in business yet, but at some point you're probably going to have to. What are your kind of tips for getting that level of support that you in your agency offer?
Yeah. I think if you're not at the stage yet, or if you want to be moving to the stage, and if you're having a bit of like, I guess if there's some blockages coming up around it, the biggest thing to know is that you're not failing by needing to ask for help. Like, at the start of your business journey, it is very much required of you, in most circumstances, to have to wear a lot of hats, to have to be the social media manager, the accountant, the HR, like all the things. Like, you have, and that's part of the learning experience. That's part of being a beginner and figuring it out and being able to diversify and apply yourself. But there gets to a point where you don't have to do it alone, and that can look really different. That, when I say you don't have to do it alone, that can look in the support of a mentor, that can look in the support of joining a community, that can look in the support, like in the way of having actual hands-on support in your business itself. So the notion of the fact that you don't have to do it alone doesn't have to look like you needing to hire someone. You can get support in other ways before you reach that point. And I think if you're pre needing support, but it's a stage that you want to reach in your business and needing hands-on support, my recommendations and suggestions for you would be to document what you do. Like, if you know that at some point within your business that you want to have hands-on support in the back end of your business, through business management in some capacity, document your procedures and processes. And that doesn't have to be complex. That can be like dot points. You can screen record as you go through and you set up like things that you're doing on a regular basis in your business. You can save repetitive emails as templates. Just have some understanding of how you get from A to B, because having that is going to absolutely like expedite the process of bringing a team member on, because they're going to have a suite of documents that they can refer to of how you operate your business, how you move from point A to point B. And from a virtual assistant point of view, or from an assistant point of view, they can come in and they can take over those tasks. When we consider coming from a business manager point of view or a strategist point of view, like I do, we can then audit what you're doing and find gaps and find places to elevate and plug where the leaks are, and really look at refining what you're doing and how you're doing it without the need to actually like basically shadow you in those processes. So it takes away a lot of time and effort for us to be almost onboarded. So that would be something to do even if you're at that like day one. You will never regret, for your own benefit or for someone else's, documenting how you do something, because you can either refer to it yourself and self audit, or you can pass it on to someone else if you get to that stage. If you're not quite ready for support, and like ongoing support, know that there is support out there without the need to engage someone in an ongoing capacity. So look for things like strategy calls, like power hours, and an opportunity to jump on with people in that space and just like pick their brain. Go to them with a problem that you're facing or something that you're looking to improve or elevate, and pick their brain and get their expertise and knowledge about how you might do that, or how they would do that if they were able to support you, and they can provide you with those tips and tools in a place that might be more conducive to your budget effectively. And then you can continually keep doing that until you're at a place where you can actually engage ongoing support. A lot of people in my industry and in my space also offer like one-off support, like project support. So again, if there's this thing that you really want to do, you might want to launch something, you might need to build a system or a back end, you might need to basically just get something out into the world that you've had on your to-do list that you just don't know how to do, don't have the time for, don't have the skills for. Know that you can have support in your business on a one-off capacity. And again, it's a really good thing to start at if budget is a concern and you don't think you have the capacity to bring someone in an ongoing basis. So they'd be my tips, I guess, if before you're ready to engage someone, how to get to that point, or how to continually move the needle, knowing that is potentially an end game for you. And then my tips probably for the people that are actually at that stage where they're looking for that person, like they're looking for their ride or die humans, they're looking for project support, they're looking for ongoing support in their business. My tips would look like, get really clear on what you're good at as a CEO, because you've now reached a point as a CEO where you can start taking off some of those hats that you're wearing and start giving them to other people. And you need to get really clear about which hats you want to hold on to and why you want to hold on to them versus the hats that you're going to start giving to other people. So figure out, like, if it means like doing an audit of what you do in a week, looking at your to-do list, things like that, like actually sitting down and working out which of those tasks give you energy, which of those tasks you're actually passionate about, and which of those tasks that like actually you still must do as the CEO. And they're always going to be tasks that you still must do as the CEO. Like, write a list of those and go, okay, well, that's what I'm holding on to. And then look at what's left and go, okay, well, I'm not good at this, or doing this drains me of energy, or I'm reaching a ceiling and it's slowing me down doing the things that I'm good at by having to spend time in this space. So then you get this list and you get a really good idea of where you actually need support. So it's not what the other business owner you're watching and who they've engaged and what they're doing. It's actually what you need at the core as a CEO, and the support that you need, and what will move your needle, your own business needle, not somebody else's. Because it's, especially in this space, in the social media, where everything's like, we plaster everything online, you can get caught up in what the next person's doing again, and who they've hired, and the support they've engaged, and be like, well, I must do that to achieve the results they have, and it's not the case. So that would be the first exercise. And then my second biggest tip is to take that list and then start looking for, obviously, potential people that can supply that support and provide that support to you. But don't get necessarily too caught up, or only caught up in the skills that they have. So particularly when you're bringing on someone in ongoing capacity, really look for fit. Like, it's something that even I've learned through the journey of growing my business and bringing people on to support me, like how different the relationship and the dynamic is when there's parallels in our personality, there's parallels in our values, and I'm looking at that just as much as I'm looking at the skills that they bring to the table. Because in business, life and business coexists, and you need to be able to draw those parallels with the people that you bring on to support you, because you'll go so much further as a collective and in a partnership, that if you have that together, than just looking for someone who has the skills alone. And yeah, definitely look for both of those things. And that can look like jumping into people's DMs and having conversations before you engage someone. That can look like asking for referrals, jumping onto, discovery calls, as they're often called in this space, and getting to know someone before you just jump headfirst into that space. So, yeah, looking for that as much as possible. Like shadow someone, watch them like for a while on their social media. What are they posting about? What's their messaging? How are they speaking? What are they doing? That stuff is just as important as the skills that they physically bring to the table for you.
I need a notebook and a pen. That was gold, Jess. That was so good.
Mm.
I've
I
made
think
so
it's the
many
lessons
mental
that
notes.
yeah, it's a lot of the lessons that I've learned along this space of growing my own business, and now it's the application and the knowledge and the advice that I give to other people, exactly, even when they're coming to me. Like I'm the first person, and I learned this skill very early on in being able to say, no, I'm not a good fit for you. And that might not be because I can't physically do the things that they're looking for. It might be that their industry doesn't align with, the type of industries that I'm most passionate about, or, as a human, I feel like I don't want to say red flags, but some, like, you might be able to pick the red flags early because you don't feel that you align as humans, and it just feels clunky. um, and yeah, I'm not to say that everybody you need to work with you need to become friends with. It's not about that. It's just about having some shared values and some shared purpose and passions, and who you are as a human, and having some common denominators there. You will go so much further with anyone that you bring into your business if you have those.
Yeah, that was great. We need to package that up and sell
You're welcome.
it.
Tell that. Yeah.
Honestly, that was so good. Yeah, I've made so many mental notes, and even things that I could be doing myself now for my own strategy and my own audits and things to actually make my business better and the way I run my business better. Because I think it's all good and well knowing what, like, being embodied, knowing what you teach and sell and things as a coach. Especially I can speak to that because I am a coach. It's all good and well doing that side of your business. I know I can service my clients, I know that I'm a great teacher and all this good stuff, but actually I don't know that much about business. I don't know that much about running and auditing and doing accountancy and all that good stuff that comes along with business. Um, and just, yeah, some of those ideas there of auditing and referring back to your own processes and seeing where the gaps are and things like that.
Mm.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Things I've not
Yeah.
actually thought about in a sense, more than like, what could I fix? Less so, sorry, more so, I thought about what I could fix rather than like, where are the gaps? Where do I need to audit to check that things are running as smoothly as they could be, or that I'm documenting my processes? So that's something I'm definitely going to pick up.
It almost comes back to that ongoing argument in the business space, and particularly in the online business space, around like businesses 99% mindset and 1% strategy. And you'll very quickly become undone if you constantly work. And we've obviously spoken a lot about mindset, and trusting yourself, and backing yourself and all those things. But if you're playing the long game, you will very quickly come undone if you don't provide yourself with intention, and look at your strategy, and be able to actually look at the back end of your business and focus on the foundations, and make sure you've got some solid foundations in place, and you're constantly looking to refine and elevate. And you don't need people to come in and do that for you. You can do that no matter what stage you're at. You just need to provide yourself with that time and space to actually do that, and actually look at how you can improve and move the needle from a strategic lens, instead of, yes, there is, business is very much a mindset game. Like, it's a huge mindset game, and that plays a huge part in your trajectory and success. But absolutely, strategy and the backside of the business is just as fundamental and important. And getting an understanding of your business and yourself, even before you're at the stage where you might be looking to outsource.
Mhm. I do like to think of business sometimes as like you wouldn't get far. You wouldn't start business without your mindset, but you wouldn't get far without your strategy,
Exactly.
because they both
Yeah.
coincide. And it's something I've been posting on my stories and things recently. You might have seen it even, that strategy and planning and forward thinking is something I'm heavily implementing for the next 2 quarters, because I do find myself getting lost a little bit in the source, let's say, of working with my clients, and working on even social media creation, and working uh, on my
Yeah.
courses and things like that. And sometimes in doing that and getting really deep into my process of all of that stuff, I do forget to think, okay, what's coming next on the podcast, or how are my emails coming out well, and like, do you know what I mean?
Mm,
I don't want
yeah.
to go into the
I,
depths of it,
no.
but that
Yeah.
kind of,
It's
yeah, that kind of thinking.
one of those like analogies, for the people that are like visual learners, or better understand the concept of it from an analogy point of view, is if when you consider like building a home, and the fun stuff is the design. The fun stuff is what it's going to look like, the paint colors you're going to be using, like what kitchen top bench tops are you just deciding on, and it's fun, and you get caught up in the momentum and the excitement of those things. But we need to consider first and foremost the foundations. If you don't have the foundations laid, if you don't have the engineering of the framework, and the slab that the ground's laid on, this, and you go like to the intricacies of that, like the soil testing underneath it, like if you don't have that, and then you go and focus on all the fun, within a year, 2 years, whatever it is, the fun will just crumble down, because you haven't been able to, or paid respect and time to the foundations that they've been laid on. And the foundations is the strategy. And the beauty of business is, unlike building a house, you can go back to those things at any one time. It's very difficult in a house building side of things to revisit the foundations after the fact. But the good thing with business is that you can always return back to those strategies, and constantly look at refining and strengthening your foundations, no matter where you are and at what stage you're at, whether you're in day one, or again, we're in day 456.
So good. Honestly, so good. I love that. And I love that analogy as well. I'm a really visual person. And even like when I'm talking, I drift off because I'm visualizing things. So
Yeah.
that's really good for me. And that is, yeah, that's a great analogy. And I think it was going to spark some ideas for a lot of people, including people that are already established in business and that are
Mm.
listening to this. Like, you always have chance to refine, and I don't want to exclude people that aren't in business right now. Even if you are in a career, you're in a corporate job, you are
Mm.
working for someone else, there are always ways to refine. There are ways to refine your current job, there are ways to refine your negotiations for your next job, there are ways
Mm.
to refine what you're doing in your projects and things, so that your life is easier.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's even as simple as scheduling ahead your meetings. Like, I just a couple, like 2 months ago now, I think, finished a job as a PA for a team of people. And it's honestly incredible to know how many people like don't get ahead on their meetings, or don't schedule very far in advance, or don't even know what their week looks like until their PA tells them, which is perfectly well and fine if that's the way they run and it works for them. But for other people, are you refining? Are you making
Mm.
your own life easier? Do you know where your gaps are? Do you know what your
Yeah.
weaknesses are, even? Where do you need to ask for help in your next one to one with your manager? Or um, where do you need to ask for clarity from the people you're doing project work for?
Yeah.
There's always ways to refine, and it's not to overwhelm you to say that, okay, you need to rip out your whole life and check the foundations and make sure everything is working. But that is an option too. If you're feeling
Mm.
like you're lost, or you're confused, or it's not going well right now, let's test those foundations. Let's see what the soil quality is. Let's
Mm.
actually get invested in where you might have cracks in the wall,
Mm.
so that you can patch them up, or completely tear down the wall and rebuild it, so that
Mm.
your life is easier. This is for no one but you.
Mm.
And I think
Yeah.
we get kind of resistant to helping ourselves, because we get stuck in our ways, and doing something different feels harder than just patching up the wall a little bit and waiting for it to crack again next week.
Mm.
This is for no one but you. So take the advice, take the inspiration that you're feeling right now, because I'm certainly feeling it, and go execute it. even
Yeah.
if it's the most you can do right now is to plan in your next planning strategy session with yourself, go put that in your diary right now as you're listening to this. Take some positive forward action from this podcast and test your foundations, test what needs to be tested, and
Mm,
get curious with yourself on where you can improve your life, how you can feel better in yourself, and most importantly, like, what change needs to come about from you listening to this and feeling activated and feeling inspired in order to make a tangible difference. Because I don't want you to go away from this episode and feel all hyped up and inspired and ready to create a strategy and audit your life and things like that. And then in 20 minutes, when someone knocks over a glass and cracks your favorite tile, like, I don't know, I'm just making something off the top of my head, and that flips your day around again and you've lost momentum. You don't want to have nothing to take from this. So
mm.
do something with forward action right now as you're listening to this before the episode even finishes.
Yeah.
Um, because I'm loving this. This is gold.
Mm. Yeah, it is. It's just that, as we said, I think we touched on earlier in the episode, like in our conversation, that just any action is better than none at all. And obviously that's going to compound, that effort of compounding. And also, you in doing and taking one step and seeing it through, even if it feels minute and small to you, you're going to build self-trust in the effort of, I did what I said I was going to do and I moved through it. I faced a fear potentially in doing it, or I faced a story that came up in doing it, and I did it anyway. And what you're telling your body in that motion is, I can face fear. I can build my self trust. I've got myself, regardless of how big the actual action is. You're telling yourself, your body, that, and you're giving it, and like you're rewriting, you're giving it opportunity to look at things differently and rewrite the previous ways you might have faced those same stories and fears and challenges. You're giving it like a new. So, and you're looking at things differently, and you're rewriting your inner log, your inner dialogue, and your inner previous stories. So that's what, you got to get past this notion that it's not the end game and it's not a very big task, because even doing those small tasks and just repetitively doing them is going to get you so much further than clearly not doing anything at all.
I needed to hear this today. I don't know about anyone else, but I definitely
Absolutely.
needed to hear this today. Um, I love that. Thank you, Jess. Those tips are honestly incredible. And if you don't use them, people listening, we're gonna know about it. You better go audit. You better go
You
change
want
your
to
life
know.
for the better, because
Yeah.
we are holding you to that higher standard now. You now know better. You have more awareness. You have more knowledge on this topic, and you also have an access point. You have me and Jess,
Mm,
and our DMs are always open for more questions and
absolutely.
pointing you even towards more support if it's needed. So
Hmm.
this is your higher standard. Pull yourself up to it. You've got this. But yeah, thank you, Jess. That is honestly incredible. I really love those.
Absolutely welcome. It's been an enjoyable in conversation.
Mm, so good. Um, I like to wrap up episodes or head towards wrapping up episodes with finding out what you find fun outside of your industry, outside of business, outside of work. So, what is it you're getting up to at the moment? What are you finding fun outside of the industry?
When I reflected on this question in the show notes that you provided, I was originally a little bit stumped, and I was like, "Oh my god, what am I doing?" And I think it's because I have found so much fun in what I do. I have found
Mm,
so much enjoyment in a lot of the spaces that I exist in, and the rooms that I put myself in, and connection and social opportunity. And yeah, I can truly. I'm one of those people who can truly say, like, business is just a complete, like, overlap of life. And while I do preface certain things in my life, obviously, they do have a direct correlation on who I am and how I run my business as well. But it took me a while to be like, oh, what am I doing that's like completely outside of who I am as a business owner? And then I was like, oh my God, I'm also planning a wedding right now, which is totally speaking to my event management, my soul, and I'm just loving. So instead of planning everybody else's events and weddings, which I've done over the years, I'm finally planning my own, which has been a beautiful little side passion project. So there's that. Obviously, I am running after a 2-year-old, which keeps me on my toes and does provide a lot of um, fun and enjoyment and play in my life that sometimes I'm very quick to push to the side, as someone who often sits a little bit more in the, the masculine, and doesn't play in a child too much. Romeo is definitely bringing that out in me in different ways. I think today I had to, after breakfast and doing all the things, and before preparing for this podcast, cleaning away the Play-Doh off the table and things like that, and realizing like this is what my life looks like, and it's beautifully imperfect. So I've got little Romeo to keep me busy and provide lots of play and fun. What else are we doing that I think is like completely outside of my role as business owner? The other thing that we are in the early stages, my partner and I, in the very early stages of planning our second build and development, so which is pretty
Wow.
exciting. So we love that. My partner is a carpenter, and we've already had gone through one project that we built and sold, and now we're in the early stages of planning what will be number two. So it's going to look a little bit different to number one, which is great. So, but in another life, if I was not doing what I'm doing, that's the kind of space that I would exist in. So the fact that I get to do that as well in my personal life is so good. So I get to think about the paint colors and the tiles and what
I
the
love
house is going to
that.
look like, which, no surprises, I use that analogy because it's something that I really love. So yeah, we're in the early stages of looking what that will look like, and hopefully moving towards that beginning in early 2025, all being well.
That is so cool. And also, congratulations. I don't even know if I've spoken to you in person since the engagement, but
Thank you.
congratulations. It is honestly so amazing. I'm so happy for
Yes,
you.
thank you.
Ah, wonderful news. But just quickly, before we even end this podcast episode, tell us about Rise. So, if you don't know Jess from the industry or from even around social media, Jess has just completed and wrapped up Rise, which is
Yes.
her incredible event. And I will not tarnish it by saying anything I should be, but please, Jess, quickly tell us all about your event.
Ah, yes, I know. It's like I forget all the things that I'm doing. I told you I wear a few hats. So I did. I just ran my very first in-person event of this texture, and it was an event for women in business predominantly, and that was both in the corporate and in the self-employment sense. Women in business who are just looking for spaces and environments where they are called to a higher standard, where their goals and their aspirations, their big goals and their big aspirations, can not only be normalized but encouraged and supported. And I wanted to provide a space that I had experienced so much in my business and personal development journey, and how much that affected my trajectory, and the catalyst of who I am, and knowing that those spaces and those humans exist, and that support, particularly as women, exists, and wanting to then cultivate that and create that for other people. And so I ran an event in Melbourne earlier this month, and it was phenomenal. And off the back of that, we have decided to go ahead and run number two, which is super exciting. Yeah, I know. So number two will be held in Brisbane in September. We're going interstate, baby. So we'll be holding number two in Brizzy, and it will be a similar structure. Again, I will have 3 guest speakers joining me on the day who are absolute powerhouses in all that they do and everything that they are, and they will be coming in to obviously gift their knowledge and experience to everybody else in that space, but obviously the so much power in this space itself, and the people that come into that, and what they experience in doing that, and some of the fears that they face in actually putting themselves in those environments. And yeah, the feedback for number one has been out of this world. Just, having people just say they just left so energized and supported, seen, heard, and wanting to just go out and just fucking chase it, and just go for it and really send it. And it's a lot of the undertones of what we've been speaking about today is, facing your fears, and knowing that you just need to continually keep meeting your edges, and overcoming them, and building your self-trust. And so that's really what the event is all about. So if you're in Australia, even if you're not, I had people flying all over from like interstate to attend number one, and I don't doubt number two will be any different. So I would love to have an international attendee, but if you are in Australia in September of this year, come on over into my Instagram page and my DMs. I can tell you more about what the event's about, but tickets are currently in first release, and I'm absolutely certain that this event, off the back of number one, will be selling out. So I cannot wait. I'm so excited.
I have 100% belief that this event is going to sell out. Absolutely. If I'm in country, you best believe I'm coming to this event. Uh, I really hope I'm in country for this event because it would be incredible.
Fingers crossed.
Um, yeah, fingers crossed. But yeah, Rise, even from an outside perspective, because I obviously wasn't in country, I didn't get to attend, and I would have loved to if I could. But it truly looks like such a safe but
Mm,
uplifting space. And it looks
mm,
like everyone, obviously from a social media perspective, everyone really got out of it something incredible from the feedback, from um, people's stories and things like that. And just like the level of connection I think that happened in that room that day, I think was very special. Just
mm,
from like what I've perceived from other people that have attended the event and like knowing their social media and stuff. Um, so I'm just very happy for you that that was the outcome because we know that you are just incredible at what you do. If you don't know, I don't think I've even said it. Me and Jess run a mastermind together. We had quite a few calls and breakthroughs and things, but Jess is truly an incredible person, and her ability to maximize spaces and to draw out of people what they not what they wouldn't necessarily know even needs to be drawn out is just incredible. I don't know any other words to use, but yeah, it looks like such a special event. So yeah, congratulations and well done.
yeah, it was indeed very special for me to witness in myself. It was a massive edge for me to actually have to move through that and host that event, and be the person not only behind the scenes running the event, something that I feel very comfortable with, but actually be the person at the forefront of that and holding that space for those women and creating that safe space. But you are absolutely, like, you nailed it when you said, like, it was a very safe space. I had people that walked into the room not knowing a single soul. As I said, I had people like traveling interstate, and it very much felt like, as cliche as it sounds, like as soon as you walked into the room, you'd gained 25 friends. You'd gained 25 friends, and you knew that you could be open and vulnerable and share, and know that there was just, we met with nothing other than support, encouragement, guidance, advice, and a little bit of a firecracker up your ass too. Like, there was a lot of that from what our speakers provided. But I love the duality of both. We're here to support you, but we're here to probably give you a kick up your ass at the same time. um, but yeah, I know how pivotal those spaces were for me, even in things like we were in, like a mastermind, how pivotal those rooms and meeting and having those humans in your corner. And for me, as part of my journey to witness that in myself and others, I was like, I have to do this. I have to be able to provide those spaces for other people. And obviously, I do it in my work, in supporting people, but this is just a different scale, and it's a different energy, and nothing beats in person, and being able to see that and witness that, and um, share that together in person. So the energy is just like, the frequency of it is just something different when everybody is operating at that higher level and that higher standard and then higher desire for themselves. It literally is electric. So I cannot wait to run number two, and I'm absolutely sure it won't be the end. I feel like there's a rise movement coming. So who knows, maybe I'll take it, we'll do interstate first, and then we might go international after that.
International would be perfect. Honestly, get over to the UK. I'm demanding
All
it.
right, I'll put it on the to-do list. Yeah.
I love that. Well, if you have nothing else that you want to share immediately, I'm going to wrap up this episode because this has been absolute fire. Like, so good. I'm so, so happy with everything we touched on today. I'm so grateful to you, Jess, for coming on the podcast. And I'm also grateful for all of the listeners for being so invested and committed to all of the things we're talking about today. Because I just know if you're here listening to this, you are, and you're on the path to change your life. So just keep going. And even if you're in doubt, re listen to the episode, get some inspiration back, and make some moves because we absolutely believe in you. So you should believe in you too. I love you all. Jess, I love you. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having
And
me.
yeah,
I
amazing.
look forward to chatting and listening to more of the episodes to come.
Amazing. Okay. I will see you guys in the next episode of the Alex Beyond Thoughts podcast. Bye.
Bye.